The schoolboy walked home after a long day at school, his backpack resting heavily on his shoulders. He was just like any other kid, carrying his books, lunch, and dreams for the future. The streets were busy with children going to after-school activities, parents picking up younger siblings, and people rushing to catch buses or cars. He had walked this route many times before and he always felt safe. But today felt different, though he could not quite say why. He noticed a police car slowly driving behind him. At first, he thought it was just coincidence. Police cars often drove around the neighborhood, but as he walked, he saw the car slow down and follow him closely. His stomach tightened. Something about the way the officers were looking at him made him feel uneasy. He tried to ignore it, keeping his head down and walking faster. He passed the corner store where he usually bought a small snack, hoping that the familiar sights would calm him, but the car followed, slowing even more until it stopped just ahead of him. 2 officers stepped out and blocked his path. They were not smiling or friendly. Their faces looked stern, almost angry, and the boy froze. He had never been in trouble before. He had never even been yelled at in school. This was new and it frightened him. He tried to keep his voice steady as he asked if there was a problem. The officers did not answer at first. Instead, they demanded to see his identification. The boy fumbled in his backpack, searching for his student ID and his library card. He was confused. Why did they need to see his ID? He was just walking home from school and he had done nothing wrong. His heart pounded in his chest and sweat formed on his forehead. One of the officers leaned closer, looking at him with suspicion. The boy could feel their eyes on him, judging him as if he had committed a crime. He tried to explain that he was just going home, that he had not done anything illegal, but the officers ignored his words. Their questions grew sharper and more forceful. They asked where he lived, where he went to school, and why he was walking alone. The boy answered as best as he could, but the officers did not seem satisfied. People passing by slowed down, curious but unsure if they should intervene. Some whispered to each other, shaking their heads at what they saw. A few younger kids nearby clutched their parents' hands, sensing that something was wrong. The schoolboy wished he could disappear. He wanted to run home and lock the door, but he knew that would only make the officers angrier. He stood still, his hands slightly trembling, hoping that the situation would end quickly. The tension was unbearable. He felt small and powerless in front of the men in uniform who were supposed to protect people, not scare them. The officers began asking more questions, repeating the same things in different ways, as if trying to catch him in a lie. Every answer he gave seemed to make them more suspicious. They looked at his clothes, his shoes, the way he carried himself, as if every detail mattered in their judgment. The boy's mind raced. He thought about his parents, his teachers, and his friends. How would they react if they saw him like this? Would they believe him? Would anyone help him? He felt a heavy weight of fear and embarrassment. His cheeks burned and he wanted to cry, but he held back the tears, not wanting to show weakness. He had always tried to be brave, but bravery felt impossible in that moment. After a few long minutes that felt like hours, one of the officers finally spoke, saying something about checking his background. The boy nodded, hoping that this meant the questioning was over. But it was not. They continued to ask questions, their tone growing colder and more suspicious. The boy realized that they were not treating him like a child or a student. They were treating him like a criminal, judging him not for anything he had done, but for how he looked. The unfairness of it made him feel sick. He wondered why this was happening to him, why the world could be so unfair, why people in uniform, people he was supposed to trust, could look at him with suspicion and fear instead of kindness. He tried to stay calm, focusing on his breathing, repeating to himself that he was going home, that nothing bad would happen if he stayed calm. He remembered what his parents had taught him about dealing with strangers, about staying polite but firm. He answered every question carefully, choosing his words, hoping that one day soon, this would end. He could feel the eyes of the officers on him, piercing and unrelenting, and he could hear the murmurs of people nearby, some whispering, some watching silently. He felt like everyone was judging him, and he hated it. He hated that he could not just walk home without fear, without suspicion, without being seen as a problem for no reason. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. The boy felt trapped, like a bird caught in a cage. He wanted someone to come, someone who could explain that he had done nothing wrong, someone who could tell the officers to stop. But no one came. Only the officers and their questions, only the judgment and the fear. He remembered a lesson from school about standing up for oneself, but standing up seemed impossible here. He was alone, and the world seemed against him. He felt tears brimming in his eyes, but he forced them back. He did not want to give the officers the satisfaction of seeing him cry. As the questioning went on, the boy noticed small details around him. A mother pulled her child closer. A man on the street turned his head quickly, pretending not to notice. The corner store owner watched nervously from inside. The boy realized that even though he felt alone, people were watching, silently hoping that he would be okay. He felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe someone would do something. Maybe someone would see the unfairness of the situation. But for now, he had to be strong. He had to endure. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the officers stepped back slightly, talking to each other in low voices. The boy could not hear what they were saying, but he could feel the tension still in the air. He clutched his backpack tightly, his hands trembling. He wanted to run home, to escape. The next morning, the schoolboy woke up feeling a mix of fear and unease. He could not forget what had happened the day before, and the memory of the officer's cold eyes and harsh questions lingered in his mind. As he got ready for school, he tried to push the thoughts away, focusing instead on packing his books and lunch. His parents noticed the tension in his movements and the sadness in his eyes. They asked him gently how he was feeling, and after a few moments of hesitation, he told them everything that had happened. His voice trembled slightly, but he spoke, honestly explaining the fear, the humiliation, and the anger he had felt. His parents listened carefully, nodding and holding his hands as he spoke. They reassured him that it was not his fault, that he had done nothing wrong, and that they would stand by him. Their words gave him a small sense of relief, but he still felt shaken. When he arrived at school, he noticed the whispers and glances from some classmates. He knew they had heard about the incident, and he felt both embarrassed and angry. He wanted to ignore it, to focus on his studies and friends, but it was impossible. The story had already spread. Teachers tried to comfort him, reminding him that he was safe now and that the school supported him. But even their kindness could not erase the memory of the officer's suspicion. It was a lesson in how quickly fear and misunderstanding could spread, and how hard it was to feel truly safe in the world. During lunch, a few close friends gathered around him. They wanted to understand, to hear his side of the story without judgment. He told them about the police car, the questions, and the feeling of being treated unfairly. His friends were shocked, some angry, some sad. They offered support and suggested ways to make sure the boy was safe in the future. Their words helped him feel less alone, but the fear lingered. He realized that even with friends and family by his side, facing such an unfair situation could leave a lasting impact. That afternoon, the boy's parents contacted the local authorities to report the incident. They wanted answers, they wanted accountability, and most importantly, they wanted to ensure that no other child would have to go through the same fear. The process was slow and frustrating. Calls were put on hold, emails went unanswered, and meetings were scheduled far in the future. The boy watched his parents' frustration and felt a growing sense of helplessness. Even when adults tried to protect him, the system seemed slow and distant. He began to understand how difficult it could be to fight against injustice even when it was clear and undeniable. As the days passed, the boy tried to continue his normal routine, but the incident weighed heavily on him. Every time he saw a police car, a part of him froze, remembering the fear he had felt. His parents noticed changes in his behavior. He was quieter, more withdrawn, and cautious. They encouraged him to talk about his feelings, to express the anger and sadness he felt inside. Slowly, he began to open up, telling them about the moments that frightened him the most, the feelings of being judged unfairly, and the uncertainty about what would happen next. Sharing his experience brought a small sense of relief, but it also made the reality of the situation more real. He was not just scared for himself. He was aware that this kind of treatment could happen to others, and that realization weighed heavily on him. Then one day, a neighbor mentioned that a security camera near the corner where the incident happened had captured part of the encounter. The family quickly obtained the video, hoping that it would show the boy's innocence and the unfairness of the officer's actions. Watching the footage, the boy saw exactly what had happened: the officer's suspicious looks, the questions asked without reason, and his own nervous, polite attempts to explain himself. Seeing it on screen made the experience both more real and more painful, but it also gave him hope. The video could serve as evidence, something concrete to show that he had done nothing wrong. The family decided to share the video online, carefully, posting it on social media to reach a wider audience. They wanted people to see what had happened and to support the boy. Within hours, the video began to gain attention. Comments poured in from people who were shocked and angry, offering support and sharing similar experiences. Friends and neighbors shared the video, spreading awareness. The schoolboy felt overwhelmed by the response. Part of him wanted to hide, to return to the safety of his quiet life. But another part felt a growing sense of purpose. He realized that by sharing his story, he could help prevent similar incidents and educate others about the unfair treatment that children like him sometimes faced. The news reached local journalists who contacted the family for interviews. The boy's parents were careful to protect his identity, but they shared the story in a way that highlighted the injustice and the need for accountability. The coverage brought the story to the attention of the broader community. People began to talk about it at work, at school, and in public spaces. Community leaders expressed concern, and some organized meetings to discuss how to prevent such incidents in the future. The boy began to see that speaking out could make a difference, that fear and injustice could be met with support and action. Despite the growing attention, the boy still struggled with the emotional impact of the event. He had nightmares about police cars following him and officers questioning him unfairly. He sometimes cried quietly at night, feeling the weight of the experience. His parents provided comfort, encouraging him to write down his feelings in a journal and to talk openly about his fears. The boy slowly began to process what had happened, understanding that it was not his fault and that he had the right to feel safe. He started to recognize the power of his voice, the importance of speaking out, and the value of support from family, friends, and the community. School became a place of both comfort and challenge. Some classmates were supportive, checking in with him and offering kind words. Others were curious or judgmental, asking questions that sometimes felt uncomfortable. The boy learned to navigate these interactions, answering honestly but protecting himself from unnecessary stress. His teachers worked with him to create a safe environment, ensuring that he could continue learning without fear. Slowly, he began to regain a sense of normalcy, though he knew that the memory of the incident would stay with him for a long time. The family continued to push for justice. The story of the schoolboy and the officers soon reached far beyond his neighborhood. Social media amplified the video and the posts from his family, drawing attention from people across the city. Among those who saw it was Cena, someone known not only for his achievements, but also for speaking out against injustice. Cena was deeply moved by the video and the boy's story. He was shocked that a young child could face such unfair treatment, and that fear had replaced the safety every child deserved. Cena knew he had to do something to help, to make sure the boy and others like him were protected, and to bring attention to the problem. Cena contacted the family privately, offering support and guidance. The parents were initially overwhelmed by the reach and the attention, but welcomed the support. They explained everything that had happened, the fear their son had experienced, and the slow progress in getting the authorities to respond appropriately. Cena listened carefully, expressing concern and frustration at the injustice. He assured them that he would use his platform and influence to advocate for the boy and to hold the officers accountable. He emphasized the importance of justice, fairness, and ensuring that children could feel safe walking home from school without fear. The news of Cena's involvement quickly spread. Reporters began contacting the family, eager to cover the story from the perspective of a prominent figure standing up against unfair treatment. The family agreed to interviews, with the boys' privacy carefully protected, and shared their story with the hope that it would make a real difference. The coverage sparked conversations in homes, schools, and workplaces, as people debated the unfair treatment children could face and the responsibility of law enforcement to protect rather than intimidate. The boy felt both nervous and encouraged. The attention was frightening, but he also understood that having support from someone like Cena could lead to meaningful change. With Cena's help, the family scheduled meetings with local officials and police representatives. They presented the video evidence, shared their experiences, and demanded that the officers involved be held accountable. Cena's presence added weight to their voice, emphasizing that the situation was not something that could be ignored. The officials listened, some more receptive than others, and promised to conduct a thorough investigation. The boy watched the meetings closely, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. He could see that the adults around him were serious, that change was possible, but he also understood that the process might take time. Community members began organizing events in support of the boy and in opposition to racial profiling. People gathered in town halls, community centers, and local parks to discuss the importance of fairness, justice, and protecting children from discriminatory treatment. The boy's story became a symbol, a powerful example of why speaking out mattered. Parents shared their experiences, teachers spoke about the importance of creating safe environments, and children expressed their fears and hopes for a world where they could feel safe. The boy, though shy at first, found himself inspired by the courage of others. He began to see that even though he had faced fear, his experience could help bring about awareness and change. As the investigation progressed, the family noticed that the officers involved were becoming defensive. They tried to explain their actions as routine or necessary, but the video and public attention made it difficult to justify unfair treatment. Cena continued to support the family, attending meetings, speaking to media outlets, and using his influence to ensure that the boy's story was heard. His involvement reassured the boy and his parents, showing them that someone influential cared deeply about justice and fairness. This support gave the boy courage, helping him realize that he was not powerless, that speaking out could make a difference even against those who tried to intimidate or silence him. During this time, the boy began receiving messages from children and teenagers who had faced similar experiences. Some shared stories of fear, humiliation, and unfair treatment. Others asked for advice or support, looking to him as an example of courage. The boy was surprised and humbled. He had never imagined that his story could reach and impact so many people. With guidance from his parents and support from Cena, he began writing letters and responding to messages, offering encouragement and sharing what he had learned about standing up for oneself in difficult situations. This connection with others helped him feel a sense of purpose, transforming his fear into a drive to help others. Schools and community organizations took notice. Workshops on respect, diversity, and the rights of children were organized, often using the boy's experience as an example. Teachers explained to students how to stay safe and how to speak up if they felt unfairly treated. Parents attended meetings, learning how to advocate for their children and protect them from discrimination. The boy's story became part of a larger conversation about fairness, empathy, and accountability, highlighting the role that every person could play in making their community safer and more just. Despite all the support and positive change, the boy still faced moments of fear and doubt. He sometimes worried about going out alone, about what might happen if he encountered officers again. But with each supportive message, each conversation, with his parents and each instance of community backing, he felt stronger. He began to understand that fear could be managed, that unfairness could be confronted, and that courage did not mean being without fear. It meant facing fear and choosing to act anyway. His relationship with his parents deepened as they navigated these challenges together. They shared stories, advice, and reassurance, reinforcing that he was not alone in his journey. As the media coverage continued, Cena's involvement helped keep the focus on the boy's story and the larger issue of racial profiling. Interviews, public statements, and community appearances emphasized that children should never feel unsafe because of who they were or how they looked. Cena's presence gave the boy a sense of security and validation. He realized that the support of someone who could reach millions of people amplified his voice, making it harder for injustice to be ignored. This realization gave him hope that one child's experience could lead to broader awareness and change. The boy's courage combined with, as the investigation progressed, the boy began to notice small but important changes in his life. At school, teachers became more vigilant and supportive, ensuring that he felt safe walking the hallways and going to his classes. Some of the staff even spoke to other students about fairness, respect, and understanding the experiences of others. The boy appreciated these efforts. He knew it could take time for people to change, but even small gestures of awareness made him feel more confident and protected. His friends were also more understanding, checking in on him, walking with him to classes, and including him in activities so he would feel secure. These actions reminded him that he was not alone, that he had allies who cared about his well-being. The police department faced increasing pressure from the public, journalists, and community leaders. The video of the incident, combined with the widespread attention, made it clear that the officers could not ignore their actions. Internal reviews were conducted, and the officers involved were placed on administrative leave while the investigation continued. The boy's family was kept informed of each step, giving them some reassurance that justice was being taken seriously. Despite this progress, the boy still struggled with occasional fear. The memory of the officer's suspicion lingered, and he sometimes wondered if he would ever feel completely safe walking down the streets of his own neighborhood. One afternoon, the boy received a call from a local community organizer inviting him and his parents to a public meeting where residents could discuss safety, racial profiling, and police accountability. At first, the boy was hesitant. Speaking in front of a group of people made him nervous, and he worried about being judged or misunderstood. But with encouragement from his parents and the reassurance that Cena would be attending, he decided to go. The experience was both intimidating and empowering. Seeing others in the community who cared deeply about fairness and safety gave him a sense of belonging and purpose. During the meeting, the boy had the opportunity to share his story, explaining the fear, humiliation, and uncertainty he had experienced. He spoke about the importance of being treated with respect and the responsibility of those in authority to protect all members of the community. His words were honest and heartfelt, and the audience listened attentively. Cena stood beside him, offering support and guidance, helping the boy to feel confident in his voice. The combination of the boy's courage and Cena's presence made a powerful impression on everyone in the room. People began to discuss practical steps that could be taken to prevent similar situations, including training for officers, better communication, and programs to foster understanding between law enforcement and the community. The boy also noticed the impact of the story beyond the community meeting. Local media covered the event, highlighting the boy's bravery and the ongoing efforts to ensure accountability. Teachers and students at other schools began discussing the importance of respect and fairness, using his story as an example. The boy was surprised and humbled by the influence his experience had on others. He realized that even though the incident had been frightening and unfair, it had become an opportunity to raise awareness, educate others, and promote positive change. At home, the boy continued to process the experience with his parents. They spent time discussing feelings, fears, and hopes for the future. The boy wrote in his journal about the moments that frightened him, the courage he had discovered, and the lessons he was learning. Writing helped him organize his thoughts, understand his emotions, and recognize the importance of using his experience to inspire others. His parents encouraged him to keep sharing his story, not to seek attention, but to help others understand the importance of fairness, empathy, and standing up against injustice. Community groups began inviting the boy to speak at workshops and school assemblies. These events were designed to teach children about safety, respect, and understanding the experiences of others. The boy initially felt nervous, but with each opportunity he gained confidence. Sharing his story in a controlled and supportive environment allowed him to turn a negative experience into a positive one, helping others learn from what he had faced. The feedback he received from students, parents, and teachers encouraged him further, making him realize that his voice had power and that speaking out could lead to meaningful change. Meanwhile, the family continued to work with local authorities to ensure that the officers involved were held accountable. The investigation progressed steadily, and the officers were required to participate in retraining programs and community service. They also issued public apologies, acknowledging the mistakes made and the fear caused. While the apologies could not erase the past, they represented an important step toward accountability and healing. The boy's parents explained that this was part of the process, and they encouraged him to focus on the positive changes happening around him. It was a lesson in patience, persistence, and the importance of standing up for what was right. The boy's relationship with Cena deepened during this period. Cena continued to mentor him, offering advice on handling public attention, navigating fear, and using one's voice effectively. They spoke about resilience, courage, and responsibility, and the boy learned that even someone strong and influential faced challenges and fears. Cena's guidance helped the boy understand that advocating for justice was not just about confrontation, but also about education, empathy, and creating safe spaces for others. The mentorship became a source of strength and inspiration for the boy, giving him confidence in himself and his ability to make a difference. The boys' school also implemented programs to address bullying, discrimination, and racial profiling. Teachers created lessons and discussions about fairness, respect, and the importance of empathy. Students were encouraged to speak about their own experiences and to support each other. The boy participated in these discussions, sometimes sharing his story and sometimes listening to others. These experiences helped him feel connected to his peers and reinforced the importance of community in addressing challenges. He began to see that change required cooperation, understanding, and consistent effort from everyone involved. As the months passed, the boy noticed that the fear he had once felt began to lessen. He still remembered the incident and the officer's actions, but the support from his family, friends, community, and Cena helped him feel more secure. He walked home from school with Graham. The final part of the boy's journey began with a sense of cautious hope. He had come a long way from the fearful child who had been stopped by the officers, and though the memory of that day still lingered, he had learned how to face it with courage. The support of his family, friends, community, and John Cena had transformed his fear into a source of strength. He realized that the experience, as difficult as it had been, had taught him valuable lessons about resilience, advocacy, and the power of standing up for what was right. The police investigation reached a conclusion, and the officers involved were held accountable. They faced disciplinary action, including retraining and community service, and issued public apologies acknowledging their mistakes. While these actions could not erase the fear and humiliation the boy had experienced, they provided a measure of closure. The boy understood that accountability was an important step in preventing similar incidents from happening to other children. He felt a sense of justice knowing that his voice, along with the support of his family and Cena, had contributed to meaningful change. With the investigation concluded, the boy began focusing on his personal growth and future. He continued attending school, participating in sports, and exploring new hobbies. Each day he carried the lessons he had learned about courage, fairness, and empathy. He was more confident in expressing himself and standing up for others, understanding that his experience could help create positive change. He also remained aware that there were still challenges ahead, but he now knew how to face them with resilience and determination. The community continued to recognize the boy's courage. Schools organized assemblies and workshops focused on respect, safety, and fairness, often highlighting his story as an example. Students, teachers, and parents discussed how to prevent bullying, discrimination, and unfair treatment. The boy participated in some of these events, speaking about his experiences and sharing advice on handling difficult situations. His words were simple, honest, and heartfelt, connecting with people of all ages. He found that by sharing his story, he could help others feel less alone and inspire them to stand up for themselves and others. John Cena remained an important presence in the boy's life. He continued to mentor him, offering guidance on resilience, public speaking, and using one's voice for positive change. They talked about the importance of community, empathy, and responsibility, and Cena emphasized that even small actions could make a significant difference. The boy was inspired by Cena's dedication and commitment to justice, and he began thinking about ways he could contribute to his community in meaningful ways. Cena encouraged him to explore his passions and to use his experiences to help others, reinforcing the idea that courage and advocacy were lifelong practices. The boy's family noticed the transformation in him. He was more confident, empathetic, and aware of the importance of fairness and justice. They were proud of his resilience and the way he had turned a frightening experience into an opportunity to educate and inspire others. They continued to support him, encouraging H.O.A. to pursue his goals, speak out when necessary, and help those who face challenges. The bond within the family strengthened as they navigated the aftermath of the incident together, finding hope and purpose in their collective efforts to create a safer and more just environment. As the boy grew older, he became more involved in community initiatives. He participated in youth programs, volunteered at local events, and shared his story with younger children. He emphasized the importance of kindness, respect, and speaking out against injustice. His experiences had taught him that fear and unfairness could be met with courage, support, and action. By mentoring others and sharing his story, he helped foster a sense of community and awareness, encouraging others to stand up for what was right. The boy also focused on his education, understanding that knowledge and learning were powerful tools for creating change. He excelled in his studies, pursued subjects that interested him, and worked on projects that promoted understanding and empathy. His experiences had given him a unique perspective, and he used it to think critically about fairness, responsibility, and the importance of community engagement. He became a role model for his peers, demonstrating that courage, persistence, and advocacy could lead to meaningful impact. Throughout this journey, the boy continued to reflect on the lessons he had learned. He understood that fear was a natural response, but it could be transformed into strength through support, action, and determination. He realized that injustice could exist even in familiar places, and that it was important to be vigilant, compassionate, and proactive. He also recognized the power of collective effort, seeing how the support of family, friends, community members, and mentors like Cena had amplified his voice and helped bring about change. The boy's story inspired others beyond his immediate community. News outlets, social media posts, and community discussions highlighted his journey, showing how one person's courage could lead to awareness, education, and positive action. Parents, teachers, and children shared their own experiences, finding hope and guidance in the boy's story. The narrative became a catalyst for broader conversations about fairness, empathy, and accountability, reinforcing the idea that speaking out and supporting one another could create meaningful change. The boy also learned to balance public attention with personal growth. He understood that sharing his story was important, but so was maintaining privacy, pursuing his interests, and enjoying childhood experiences. With guidance from his parents and Cena, he learned to navigate public speaking, media attention, and community engagement responsibly. He developed confidence in his abilities, resilience in the face of challenges, and a sense of purpose that guided his actions. Over time, the boy became an advocate for fairness and justice within his school and community. He worked with teachers, students, and community leaders to organize workshops, discussions, and events focused on empathy, understanding, and safety. He encouraged peers to speak up when they witnessed unfair treatment and to support one another in creating a positive environment. His efforts helped build a culture of awareness and respect, reinforcing the lessons he had learned from his own experiences. As he continued to grow, the boy understood the importance of mentorship and guidance. He reflected on the role Cena had played in his journey, offering support, advice, and encouragement. Inspired by this example, he sought opportunities to mentor younger children, share his experiences, and help them navigate challenges. He emphasized the importance of resilience, empathy, and using one's voice constructively. Through these efforts, he helped create a supportive network for children facing fear, uncertainty, or injustice. The boy's journey also taught him the importance of gratitude and reflection. He regularly expressed appreciation for the support of his family, friends, community members, and mentors. He recognized the value of the guidance and encouragement he had received, and he worked to pay it forward by helping others. This sense of gratitude strengthened his resolve to continue advocating for fairness, empathy, and justice, ensuring that his experiences could benefit not only himself, but also those around him. By the time the boy reached his later school years, he had developed a strong sense of identity, confidence, and purpose. He knew that challenges and unfairness could arise, but he also understood that support, action, and persistence could lead to meaningful change. He had transformed fear into resilience, humiliation into advocacy, and uncertainty into purpose. His experiences had shaped him into a thoughtful, courageous, and empathetic young person, prepared to face the world with confidence and compassion. The boy's story became a lasting example of the power of courage, support, and advocacy. He demonstrated that even in the face of fear and unfairness, one could stand up, speak out, and inspire change. His experiences highlighted the importance of community, mentorship, and persistent action, showing that positive transformation was possible when people worked together. The lessons he had learned about resilience, empathy, fairness, and justice continued to guide him as he moved forward in life. Through it all, the boy never forgot the fear he had felt that day with the officers, but he had learned to use that memory as a source of strength. He had discovered that standing up for oneself, seeking support, and using one's voice responsibly could lead to real change. He had seen how the actions of family, friends, community members, and mentors could amplify his efforts and bring about accountability and awareness. Most importantly, he had learned that even the smallest acts of courage and kindness could ripple outward, creating a safer and more just world for everyone. In the end, the boy's journey was one of transformation. From a frightened child facing unfair treatment to a confident, empowered young person advocating for fairness and justice, he had grown in ways he never could have imagined. His experiences had taught him the value of resilience, empathy, and community. They had shown him the importance of standing up against injustice, using one's voice for good, and supporting others in their struggles. The boy's story was a testament to courage, the power of advocacy, and the impact of collective action, leaving a lasting legacy of hope, awareness, and positive change. To confidence, knowing that he had allies and that people were working to make the streets safer. The experience had taught him the importance of resilience, the power of speaking out, and the impact of community support. It had also shown him that one voice, even that of a child, could inspire change when combined with courage and persistence. The boy's story continued to inspire others. Parents, teachers, and students in the community began organizing events to educate and advocate for fairness. Workshops, assemblies, and discussions became more frequent, using the boy's experience as an example of how to confront fear and injustice constructively. The boy began to see the positive effects of his story, not just on himself but on the larger community. People were learning, understanding, and taking steps to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. This realization gave him a sense of purpose and pride, turning a frightening experience into a source of hope and change. The boy also focused on his personal growth. He worked on building confidence, learning new skills, and participating in activities that made him feel strong and capable. Sports, art, and community involvement became outlets for expressing himself and connecting with others. These activities reinforced his sense of resilience and helped him manage the emotions that had arisen from the incident. The boy realized that personal growth and community action could go hand in hand, creating a stronger and more supportive environment for everyone. With Cena's continued support, the boy began to think about long-term ways to advocate for fairness and justice. They discussed ideas such as mentoring younger children, participating in awareness campaigns, and continuing to speak publicly about his experiences. Cena emphasized that meaningful change often took time and effort, but that persistence, courage, and a strong moral compass could make a lasting difference. The boy felt inspired and motivated, understanding that he had the ability to contribute to a safer and more just world. Through these experiences, the boy's family, school, and community strengthened their bonds. They learned to support each other, to communicate effectively, and to stand together against unfair treatment. The boy saw firsthand the power of collective action, empathy, and persistence. He also recognized the importance of guidance, mentorship, and using one's voice responsibly. The experience had been difficult, but it had also been transformative, teaching him lessons about courage, justice, and the power of community. By the end of this period, the boy had grown in confidence and understanding. He knew that challenges and unfairness would still exist, but he also knew that support, courage, and action could make a difference. He felt prepared to face future obstacles and to continue advocating for fairness and respect. The incident that had once filled him with fear had become a catalyst for growth, empowerment, and change. The boy understood that his story could inspire others, encourage action, and contribute to a safer and more just community. He had faced fear, experienced support, and discovered his own strength, and he was ready to continue making a difference in the world. Cena's advocacy started to influence the police